Hello, this is Jed Brewer with Study Groups and the Below the Line Club. It's very nice to have you on our webinar today. We're going to be talking about sharpening our competitive edge, and particularly doing it with better fuel marketer technology. Really pleased to have two experts in the realm of technology, and particularly fuel marketer technology, with us today with FleetPanda. So Rohit Srivastav is the head of marketing at FleetPanda, and Soham Dhakal, he is the Chief Technology Officer. So Rohit and Soham, it's really nice to have you guys on the call today. Thank you so much for taking your time. What we're really going to cover is, does the fuel marketing industry need software to exist? And what Rohit and Soham will tell us is absolutely not or no. But how do we use it, the technology that is available, to ultimately make our businesses better and more thriving? How do we reduce errors, overtime, paperwork, other costs, and what technology can fuel marketers use, particularly as we go forward from here, say into 2024, and to become much more proficient. So technology is increasingly important in all of our businesses. So we always want to stay on the edge of the competition, the competitive edge, so to speak. We want this to be educational in nature, and so if you have questions, we encourage you to ask them. I have you muted. So in the GoToWebinar dialog box that's probably popped up on your screen, there's an area that you can type in questions. I will be able to read those, and then I can relay them to our presenters at the appropriate time. Because again, the point here is to try to make this as educational as possible and make sure your questions are answered. If there's anything that's really minute or super specific and possibly not of general interest, Rohit and Soham can always follow up with you after the call as well. But at this point, we'll go ahead and get started. So, Rohit, I'm going to turn the controls over to you and allow you to tell us a little bit about how can we sharpen our competitive edge with better fuel marketer technology.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jed, for that kind introduction. And thanks everyone on the session for showing interest in this. We are really, really excited to present the thoughts that we have gathered about the topic. And we hope that we are nick in time for your strategy building for the next year. So we are going to discuss how can fuel marketers use tech to lead the industry and outpace the competition. I hope and assume that all of you are able to see my screen. And with that, we'll just dig in.
Yeah, it looks good, Soham. Or excuse me, Rohit. Yeah, it looks great.
No worries, Jed. Thanks so much for that confirmation. So I think Jed has done a great job of introducing ourselves. I'll just go ahead and say I am Rohit. I take care of marketing at FleetPanda, and I have been a decade plus into this entire SaaS ecosystem or tech ecosystem. I have seen the best of the industries evolve, and I have been fortunate enough to be on the top of a couple of very, very high big unicorns at the cutting edge of those. And I've had courtside seat of evolution of tech, and I'm really excited of the same patterns being evolved in the fuel distribution industry as well. For Soham, I would let Soham introduce himself. I think Soham.
Yeah, thanks, Rohit. Hi, everyone, and again, thank you for showing your interest in this topic today, where we can share our experience. As for me, my background is technical. I started with Oracle, Cerner, and then worked in various SaaS companies, ran some companies, founded some. And basically, I'm an evangelist and a technical person, which means it's very hard for me to stop talking. So Rohit will probably have to jump in quite a bit to, just stop me talking.
Well, thanks so much. Stopped, yeah. Yes. I think, yeah, that's a cue you should take. I think I've developed a habit of stopping you and interjecting, so I'll maintain that habit. And thanks so much for that intro, Soham. So today's agenda that we are going to talk about essentially is, what is this big monster called digital transformation that we keep on hearing all the time and all across? And then how do you choose the right tech partner? What are those factors that you need to consider in any tech partner that you would choose for that matter? So let us just get into this and understand what digital transformation is is defined as. And this is not our definition, honestly. This is taken by the biggest consulting company out there, McKinsey, that we all respect. Digital transformation is the rewiring of an organization with the goal of creating value by continuously deploying tech at scale. Wow, that was mouthful. So what essentially that means is you should be able to build a competitive advantage by deploying tech at scale to improve customer experience at lower costs. The key terms that you should keep in mind is continuously deploying tech at scale, improving customer experience and lowering cost at the same time. And the second part of the agenda of this presentation would be how to choose the right tech partner for every piece of that puzzle. Basically, how to choose the right horse for every course that you take on in your digital transformation journey. Now, according to our understanding, what we have seen as a general trend, these are the top 4 challenges of our industry that is facing today. Number 1 is the cost of resources. Number 2 is the market volatility. Number 3 is the high competition. And number 4 is the legacy technology challenges. When we talk about costs, it can be either the drivers or the fuel cost or just the cost of all the assets and the legacy software and just the cost of maintaining the business. All of that combined is increasing every day. There is no going back on those costs that we see. So what you really need to do now is to think about how you can do more with less. That is a theme that we need to keep in mind when we are discussing about software, when we are discussing about new way of doing business, that when we are discussing about 2024 in general. That is part 1. The second part is market volatility. Now, we need to be, market is changing all the time with external factors, with geopolitical factors. We know there are multiple wars going on, there is supply problem, there's supply chain. We saw the entire logistic failing because of a certain canal going burst and so on. So market volatility has been at a all-time high. So what we really need now is be agile enough to be more experimental and be more proactive in testing out new things. The third part is high competition. Now, there are in our industry, we have seen in the past year and a half, and more than that, that there have been much more acquisitions, amalgamations, consolidation of companies where new competition has propped in terms of new age companies, as well as a lot of old age companies. A lot of old timers have come together to become bigger than what they were and to expand into more business lines as well. So there are all kinds of competition that are growing up and cropping up in all aspects of the industry. And the most important that we are sort of more familiar to talk about is the legacy technologies, the challenges that they bring. The price of outdated technology. One, obviously you have invested in that technology and you are through with that, you are keeping that. So it is, you are working in an older way of working, and at the same time, you are also facing the challenges that the old technology brings with it. So it's there is an investment as well as an opportunity cost, as well as a commitment cost that is aligned to the legacy software that you are tied to as well. Now, the question is, or the observation is, every industry in this world, and we all know this, there's nothing new. Every industry in this world, we have seen with our own eyes that it has went through a digital revolution. Taxis went from waiting in line to getting a cab in a click of a button, right? Banking, I don't even remember when was the last time I was in a bank branch, to now we have all kinds of fintech apps, Mint, Cash App, and so on and so forth. Similarly with retail, right? We used to roam around the aisles. There were big box stores, the malls, and now they're like it's quick commerce. Everything is there in 20 minutes or less. So all of these transformation, in fact, Soham and I were discussing about something very similar. In fact, this is not my experience. This is a beautiful example that Soham gave. I think Soham will tell it better. Soham, would you want to give that taxi example?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I remember in the 90s when we had to book cabs in New York, there was actually a phone you could call and they would dispatch. They had probably CB radios or something where they would talk to the driver, whoever was nearby with the maps or remember the streets, and they would show up. So they were still using tech, to provide the service, but it was actually easier for you to just step outside and see if you could hail a cab. So that was the example we were discussing in terms of the transformation that the industry where you need a ride has come along with now Uber and Lyft, where it's just a click of a button and you know when the car's coming to be there, simply interface, all of that. So that was kind of what we were talking about. Now, what is it about this modern tech that offers you to do some of these things so easily and seamlessly? So one of the primary things that we know from using apps like Uber or Lyft is that it's very easy to use. You can pretty much, you don't need a big training in order to use these. They're intuitive. The other aspect of this is because you deploy it or use it on your phone, it's actually running on part of it on your phone, and then there are servers in the back end in the cloud that actually handles all of that. The other aspect of that is the speed. Everything is real time. You know where the driver's at, you know when it's going to be in your location, all of those things, right? Not only that, there's also the ease of actually getting it working. We gave the example of Uber, but if you look at some of these other tools you may use, even Microsoft Office or Teams that you may use for your daily business, there are so many easy ways that you can add a new app and start using it. So the speed with which you can actually use features and functions has changed drastically with the modern tech. Finally, if we also look at the cost of using some of these tools, it's really gone down because of the tech that supports it. Just looking at the example of Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Office Online, like they say, it used to be that you'd have to install all of that in your computer, make sure all of this is the correct version, go the whole 9 yards. But now, if you just work on online without installing anything, just from a browser, you can have a meeting, you can have a chat, you can do your Word documents, Excel, all of that, right? So what that does is you just pay a monthly fee and it lowers all of your costs without having to worry about who has what version, is it installed in the desktop or not, right? So all of these
So,
little things that the modern, yeah.
Quick question for you. One of the benefits you said of technology is it really needs to have an ease of use, but also an ease of getting it working within your company. And that example of Uber is pretty relevant and good. Like, hey, I just download Uber, or I put in my credit card information, and boom, it's working. It feels like with so much technology in our industry, we're kind of told that it's really easy to implement and install and get going right away. But man, when we go and implement and install it, it feels like there's changes to workflow and all this kind of stuff that just makes it feel like it wasn't as easy as it often was purported to be, a big back office software transition or something like that. Can you speak into that a little bit as it relates to software?
Sure, absolutely. And you are absolutely correct, because in fact, implementation in the traditional sense has been like pulling teeth. It is so painful. You don't know when it's going to end, and you just want to get out of there before you even start seeing the benefit. So what has changed is that now, if we go to the next slide, it will kind of make sense on how some of these things have changed, right? So I'll answer the question, but in a roundabout way. So let's step back and say, what were some of the things that actually made it complicated for you to implement some of the technologies that we wanted? One, you had to buy servers. You had to have experts installing all of that. You had to look at your workflow and make sure it maps to the software and not that the software actually maps to your workflow, which meant not only did you need to be expert in your workflow, which is natural, but you now had to be expert in the software workflow also, right? So all of these things compounded to give the experience of where that implementation was so difficult. Now, if we step back and look at the modern tech, if we look at the components of it, So you have cloud systems. Basically, cloud means the remote server runs all of your software. You just connect it with internet. Means access is easy. You don't have to have servers. So all of that, getting all that into your operations is gone. Then we use modern architecture like APIs so that different systems work together. One of the pains in implementation is actually integration between different systems, because each comes with its own standards, own way of doing. And when you try to make them talk to each other, it takes forever and it's so complicated. But now with the modern architecture, you have APIs, which are just standards of talking to each other. And then that becomes seamless and quicker, right? And then finally, the whole architecture is more modular, meaning you can pick and choose components that you want to use and actually build something like a Lego block to make it work with your workflow. So as an example, let's say you have to make sure that the driver not only prints delivery tickets, but has pricing information on it, right? So how do you do that? In the older way of doing things, somehow we needed that information in our system because that may reside in another system, in a back office system. You have to make sure all of that comes through and gets printed on the delivery ticket. With the modern architecture and the technology, how that works is your dispatch system just talks to the back office system through APIs. It knows which customer, which order, gets that information, and then at the point of delivery from the mobile phone, it just says print. You have a little printer in your truck, and it prints that information with the right information. So the implementation is easier because now it's cloud-based, so you can do a lot of heavy lifting without actually disrupting your work. You can do all of these pre-process, looking at how your workflow is without the disruption. You can have all of that configured and done in the cloud, and then anyone accessing it from anywhere can actually use it easily, right? So I guess to answer your question, a long way of saying is because of the modern architecture, it actually speeds up implementation. It allows these tools and techniques that you can do outside of just doing it on premise. And also the technology allows for quicker integration, which gives you the benefit. So I hope I was able to answer that in a long-winded way, but
yeah, very helpful. So
yeah. So if we look, dig a little bit deeper and look at the slide where we kind of go through cloud-based versus legacy, all of the things that I just talked about, we've kind of summarized it here, right? So if you look at costs, they're typically lower for cloud-based because you go by the number of users, and it's just monthly payment. You don't have to worry about hardware, server, scaling, all of that. If there's growth, you just pay for one more license or however many, right? Again, upgrades and customization. Because everything is deployed in the cloud, all of the changes that are done, all of those are reflected for every user. It's not just for one user, but everyone has access to the same thing. And because it's easy to deploy, and these companies or these partners that you may have will be doing customization or new releases, you have more velocity in the type of features you want to use and the option of using it. So another point is scalability, right? We discussed this kind of earlier, where if you have growth, how do you make sure that your system still is able to handle that? In a cloud-based or this modern architecture, you don't even have to worry about it. You keep adding users, you don't even know that it's already been scaled, right? You don't even have to push a button because it's auto scaling. Again, we talked about integration, which is one of the key pain points for our industry. Is you have tank monitors above ground, underground. They need to integrate. If you just get a bunch of emails, someone has to sit and say, oh, this tank monitor is giving this data, I need to create an order. But if that integration is seamless and it automatically creates orders, all of a sudden that's easier for you to actually do your job. And finally, we talked about this, where everyone can have access easily. You can be in your home, on your iPad, at the office, or anywhere, and you can still have access to all of the information, all of the system that you have, right? So that's kind of how the cloud-based. Yeah, go
Real
ahead. Was
quick,
there?
so back to that slide before, a lot of us are on legacy systems, and working, like kind of how we motivated the call, like, if it isn't broke, why fix it? I think that's a common mentality you probably come across, that we all have.
Right. Yep.
What's the ROI as that you've experienced when somebody's actually moved from a legacy software to more of this cloud-based software that you're describing?
Okay. Yeah. So very, very good question. So how I would frame that is, one, we started with this premise of digital transformation, right? So what we're saying, or where we want to go, is that when you use tech, it's not just for a linear ROI that you're looking at, but how can you actually use it at every step to deliver value to your clients, increase customer satisfaction, and lower costs. So it's more of a journey, number one. So in terms of the ROI, there will be tangible ROI, and there's some intangible ones. In the tangible ones, you look at how much you pay per license per user, and you tally that, and then the cost of implementation and the integration, which are now drastically reduced because of the technology. I would guess it's anywhere from, compared to legacy, 20 to 30% less. In terms of implementation, it's even more. It's 1/3 of the cost of implementing of a legacy system. But then, because this is subscription based, you do have your annual cost, but that is manageable because now it depends on the number of users and how you want to use the system, right? In terms of the other side of that equation, where you have better user experience, your drivers are probably happy because it's easier to use, your dispatch is able to see everything going on in the field and make better decisions. The pricing information that just changed is reflected all the way to the driver, so they also know where to make that right call. All of those intangible benefits also adds up to your overall ROI.
That makes sense.
Did that make sense? Yeah, you're welcome. So if we go to the next slide. So as you can see, because we're a modern company, we're also into memes. So please do not hold that against us. But I just wanted to show you the meme from Lord of the Rings there. And being a nerd, again, these are things that will come up in the presentation. So now, like Jed was talking about, if we look at where we are in terms of not even just the legacy software, but also our current process, even if it's manual, and we were to look at our lay of the land and then kind of project how we can do the digital transformation, we can start with this slide, right? So basically, you can bucket it into 3 areas where you have the sourcing and inventory management, then you have your logistics, and you have your back office. And then how we actually work in that is, with sourcing, you have your pricing management, procurement, contracts. Then you have inventory information coming in from tank monitors. You may do some kind of forecasting to make sure that your deliveries, you make the right deliveries. Then your dispatch has to create the order, or the salespeople. Then you dispatch it. Your driver has to deliver, give the ticket, make sure the delivery is completed. Then the back office comes into the picture with all of these credit management, invoicing, taxes, fees, freights, all of that, right? So this is how we try to make sure all of these different functions come into the system so that we can actually make the customer experience better and our operations smoother. Now, if we go to the next slide, in order to go on the digital transformation journey, how we want to look at it, Rohit, can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So how we want to look at it is actually kind of change the perspective a little bit. So we've all heard of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, where you have your basic needs, and then you have this pyramid where you actually get up to actualization. Now, if we were to look at our business with that perspective, how would that look, right? So how would that digital transformation look? So in this slide, you can see that at the bottom of the pyramid,
is the unified system. This is the basic thing that we need to have to run our business smoothly. And a lot of legacy vendors allow you to do that, right? You try to have the same source of truth between dispatch, driver, and the back office. The dispatch is able to dispatch, give the information to the driver makes the delivery, it comes back, you put that back into your back office, and then you're able to send the bill out. So at that level, it's just the unified system. What that will allow you to do, it just make sure that your operation runs smoothly. Some of the things that are required in that is good communication. So if a pricing thing changes, you have to change a terminal, the driver knows about it. Real-time visibility. So if an order comes in, the dispatch knows where the drivers are so that they can actually decide which driver is the best one to deliver. So that's basically your fundamental. Then if you look at the next level, you then want to actually use tech on the digital transformation journey to gain more efficiency. Now, what does that mean for you? It could mean anything from credit check process, so that every time you create an order, credit is automatically checked to make sure that that order can be delivered, or what are some of the actions that you need to take in order to make that delivery, right? Or you could even say, rather than my customers calling, I'll have them go to this portal, they can order, pay, do all of that there, so that now my order can be delivered. So you work on efficiency and you try to use tech, or you actually use tech to get you there. Then higher on the pyramid would be your optimization. Now here's where you actually look at what are some of the things that I can do to actually do more with less. Are my drivers using the correct routes? Is there a better way of routing them? Two, I'm getting all of this information from tank monitors. How will I use it? Do I have someone just looking at it and creating orders, or can I leverage the system to look at forecasting data, historical data, and give me a better predictability of when is the best time to actually do a delivery? And if I send a delivery based on a tank monitor data, are there other tanks in that area that I can efficiently fill, right? So the system can actually help you do that. So when we talked about using tech at scale to continuously add value, when you get into the optimization aspect, these are the things that you will come up with, and you will use tech to solve those. And this gives you a competitive advantage. And finally, when we're actually talking about actualization, what that means is that now you have all of this data, and you can actually predict or tweak or experiment certain things in your business that you've always wanted to do. As an example, what is the best way for me to get a new driver on board? Let me experiment with a few pilot drivers, right? Or if I want to enter a new market, what can I run there? How do I run an experiment so I get all of that data? I get the alerts, all of that. You have a dashboard that shows you all of the information that you need. So when you actually get to the actualization phase, you have all of the data, you have tools with technology to enable you to make these new calls, and you can start by experimenting. Now, again, the examples I gave were just the examples, but for all of you, that process to actualization or the path may be slightly different. You may want to do efficiency as your first hierarchy of need, right? Or you may want to add a couple more things. So basically, in the path to digital transformation, what you also want to do is lay out your path to actualization. And then you see how tech will help you get there, because a tech will be your partner. Any questions around that? I know I go really deep in this because this is a favorite talking point of mine, but yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add the context on how Soham essentially came up with the pyramid is because we have been in the dispatching business before. As FleetPanda, we used to exist as another company, and then we became software guys for our industry. And also, this comes from building with some of the biggest customers out there for us. So this is not science. This is not universal knowledge. This is only something that you'll get here or when you are on a call with Soham. So yeah, take it with that context. I just wanted to add there.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for
and let the
Rohit. So yeah, what Rohit pointed out, that we did run a fuel operation before. So a lot of these issues that we faced, especially with trying to get some legacy software, trying to get the operations, and trying to scale the business fast enough, because we were a new entrant. Because of all of that experience, we were able to kind of come up with some of these ideas. So yeah, thank you, Rohit, for pointing that out. Over to you.
great.
Are there any questions? Or
Uh,
Jed, did you have any question on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were saying, sounded really good, especially on that actualization triangle and all that. And I was just curious more from a practical standpoint how you and FleetPanda came up with your actual solution. What's the story behind it?
Great question. So yeah, so when we started the business, we knew that using tech would actually give us the competitive advantage, right? Because you have to manage drivers, you have to manage suppliers, all of that, and just the amount of information that flows through, and the points of failure by just not let me rephrase that. The points of failure due to lack of information going to the right person were massive, right? We all know this. So when we looked at some of these tools that existed out there, we weren't happy in terms of how easily it could be implemented. Same problem we described earlier. And two, it wouldn't adapt quickly enough for what we needed. So to give you an example, when you have drivers and the dispatch telling them where to go, things change as the driver leaves the yard. And then all of a sudden, by the time the driver has that information, it would be too late, because it would be dependent on the dispatch getting a hold of the driver. So we wanted to make sure that that information was real time, and any change that the dispatch made would show up in the driver's phone in an app, right? We didn't want to install new hardware. We didn't want to do any of that. So we tried to simplify all of that so that the driver just installs an app from the Google Play Store or the App Store, and the dispatch, any changes they make, it's reflected. There's a notification in the app, and the driver is able to do that. So that's just one example of how we needed to solve this problem. Rather than having a hardware, a big tablet, a driver already had a cell phone. We could even give them one, and it made that seamlessly. So there are so many stories like that, but I just wanted to illustrate with, I guess, one.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you. And I think you were going on to talk a little bit about what we need to look for in vendors, but I'd be really curious to get your input on that.
I know
we're evaluating tech options out there.
I know we are at the half an hour mark already, and I try to run through and run Soham through out of his thoughts as well, as Soham gave the disclaimer. So we wanted to cover this very briefly and touch upon the key points on what exactly should you look for when you are evaluating tech options. And this is not just for your dispatch solution, but this is for, again, going back to the same analogy, this is for all the horses for the different courses that you might take. What essentially at a high level, what you should look at is do more with less, that we talked about. Then adaptability to grow and change with you and with the environment. You need a tech partner to lean on, and a partner that really empowers your team, right? So when you're looking at software options, these are the 4 themes that you should look at. Now, what does all of these vague, generic, high-level things mean? First of all, when we are talking about doing more with less, less essentially translates into 2 things. One is the cost of ownership that comes with any software option. While we look at the overall value, but we already know what true cost of ownership means when implementation times drag on for months and months, when maintenance and upgrades are logged, when support costs extra, if there is any support for that matter, if there is a training and it costs more, initial setup implementation, and then post implementation, all the operation, that is amalgamated to cost of ownership. You have X in mind, and it essentially almost always is 2.5 to 3x of the cost that we start from. And the second thing is ability to integrate. A lot of software options will want you to use them for all your business operations, while what you should really look at is finding the best possible solution for every function and sub-function of your business that actually talks and plays well with the other parts of your business, so that you don't have to change everything all at once and then sort of find yourself in the middle of nowhere. Uh, that is part one, doing more with less. The other thing is adaptability to grow and change. So one, you have to look at the feature velocity of the software options that you have. Essentially, how fast are they releasing? That shows how fast they are evolving and adapting to the new world, how they exist. Second is flexible and willing to build on customer requests. So as Soham pointed out earlier, you would change, your business processes would change, and even if they don't change, you are the one paying for the software. You should not be changing your way of working according to the software that you're bringing. Essentially, they should be able to be flexible and willing to build according to your request. The third is software you can customize according to your needs and workflows. And the last one is the company really independent, where building that software is a mission that still exists, or is it an acquired company where it's just a small part of a P&L, rows and columns in a sheet that exists in a corner of the company in a large organization, where the lifeblood of that particular software is not there. So those are the couple of things that you really need to think about. And then there are a couple of technical aspects that I'll pass the baton to Soham to cover both of them. One is focus on this word, which is called tech partner. Soham, you love this word. I would let you explain.
Yeah. Well, more than the word, I love the meme because we made that. I know we've all seen the movie Jerry Maguire, and the whole idea is if we're going on a digital transformation journey, it's not just about the current solution, it's actually about the future, right? So you really need to know that the partner can be with you for that journey. Now, even not just in this industry, in every industry in the past, legacy software has been you take the software, it's about the feature and not the future. So we actually kind of position it like, are you just looking at the feature? Are you looking at the future? So a partner will actually evolve with you and go on this journey, share information, maybe the best practices and all of that, right? Something as simple as support has to be 24-hour, so that has to be done, whether through modern technologies like Slack or call, it has to be there. So basically, it's not a vendor anymore, but a partner. So when we're talking about legacy vendors versus modern partners, right? So if we go to the next slide, the final slide, which I really like, is we talked about this a little bit earlier about intangible benefits. How do you empower your team? All of the knowledge that exists in the minds of your team has to be in the system. Not only does it have to be in the system, that it has to be easily accessible so that if a new person joins, if a new driver joins, they knows exactly how to service a certain customer, right? Number two, it has to be so intuitive. And we took the example of Uber earlier, where your drivers or your dispatch should just look at the system and say, hey, I know how to do this. I should be able to make this change. So all of that, if that's smooth, the experience for your team member actually increases, and it increases that psychological safety, which allows them to be more efficient and be more productive. So basically, even your B players, the software should empower them, or the technology should empower them to actually go on a path to become A players. So that's pretty much what we mean by empowering your team. Next. Do you have any questions, Jed, at this point? I know I kind of ran through those, but
yeah, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, if somebody wanted to be able to reach out to you, how can they, best contact you to learn more? Is to scan this QR code that's here on the slide?
This QR code is essentially a much larger descriptive version of what we talked about on how do you evaluate a software option or a software partner. What you'll get here is a 5-page guide, as well as an RFP, as well as a checklist that you can basically circulate amongst your team, where people can basically check about the hygiene factors that you need to have in a software vendor for making them new age, as we call it. So, but this is not the way how you communicate
Yeah.
with us.
So
You can,
right, you can just go to our website, and there's
yes.
a place for you to just book a meeting or ask questions or anything. So just
All right.
fleetpanda.com, and yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really good, and we'll send out your contact information too, and that way, if anybody has any individual questions they want to follow up with, I know you guys would be happy to do that. And for the audience, we'll also make this slide deck and recording available to you. One final question though, before we wrap up, that came in from the audience. They were just saying, I got a lot of B players on my team. Can I use tech to help take those B players into A players?
That is a great question. So the goal of digital transformation, one of that is to actually do that. Now, we didn't explicitly say in the definition, because if you look at, let me step back, right? Nowadays, there's a lot of Gen Z coming into the workforce. They have actually grown up with all of this technology, customization, all of that. So if you were to communicate to them in a way that they're not familiar with, they're naturally going to be B players. But if you are able to help them do their job in a way that they're accustomed to, barring few exceptions, they will be able to kind of perform at A level. So that's just one example. Now, you may have some other types of people also. So what technology allows you to do is make their job easier, so they're actually more engaged and have a ownership, which naturally leads them on the path to being an A player, right? We have an instance out in West Coast where a driver actually uses the phone, goes to the site, scans, fuels, turns on the meter with the phone, and he actually told us, this has made my life so much easier. I'm actually excited about doing the deliveries, right? So what tech allows you to do is kind of expose some of these areas that may not have come out for them to actually be an A player. And again, there's no guarantee, but at the same time, will enable you to do that.
That makes sense. And having a kind of one platform as opposed to multiple other systems that are all trying to tie together seems like it could aid in doing that as well. But Rohit and Soham, I really appreciate your guys' time so much and providing the education here to our members. I hope our members that you found it valuable as well. And again, I'll send out those slide decks and look forward to having you engage with any questions that you have in the future. Thank you all. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much, Jed. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.